Well, good morning and welcome to Trade Show Guy Monday Morning Coffee. It is January 15th, 2018. Thanks for joining me. I'll have decaf with a little cream and sugar, or is it cream and honey this morning? You know, it could be that Wetherspoon Manuka honey. They do such a good job with New Zealand honey. I'm just giving a shout out to a client of mine. Please subscribe at iTunes and leave a review if you are so inspired. You know, I keep making progress on my new book, and if that keeps happening, you know, damned if it's not going to come out here in the next couple of months. My goal has been to have it ready when I head off to Natural Products Expo West in early March, which will, I believe, be 2 months from this week, maybe last week. So I think we're on track. I spoke with my illustrator, Jesse, a couple of times in the past week, and he's on track with List of Illustrations. Spoke with Create Space, and they're on board. Everything is just like lined up and working well. So, you know, Jesse did such a great job on my first book, Trade Show Success, that I had to have him back to keep that sort of interesting look going. You may know me as Trade Show Guy, owner of Trade Show Guy Exhibits. We're a Salem-based project management company. We work with clients on new design and build exhibit projects, as well as coordination of logistics and shipping and installation, dismantle, etc. It's just what we do. This week on the video blog / podcast, a fun interview with Steve Miller, author, keynote speaker, all-around fun guy. His new book, hang on. His new book is Uncopyable, which, you know, is a great book, fun read, quick read, not a long book, packed with really good stuff. And here's how our conversation went. Steve, thanks for joining me. We're both in the Great Northwest, as I understand it, which is the best place to be, as far as I can tell.
No, tell everybody it rains here all the time, you know, so...
That's right. I remember back in the day when
stay away.
Oregon Governor Tom McCall said, "Come to Oregon, but don't stay."
Don't stay. Yeah, yeah.
It's horrible here. You'd hate it in Bend. You'd hate it in
every
Salem.
day.
Yeah,
every day up here.
You never see the sun. It just doesn't happen. So anyway,
we don't tan. Yeah. We rest.
Exactly. Steve, you sent me a copy of your book, Uncopyable: How to Create an Unfair Advantage Over Your Competition. It's not your first book, obviously. You've been down this path before.
Yes.
Is this brand new, or has it been out for a little while? I'm just curious.
It's been out about 8 months.
Okay.
Is not long. Still pretty new. So,
now, do you write it to sell it to people, or do you write it to just position your business? Because there's obviously many different reasons that authors write books.
It was both.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a strong following, so you know, so I've had really good success selling it. We've had tremendous response from readers, and so it's done real well on Amazon. But obviously, it's you know, when you're a professional speaker, you got to have a recent book. I mean, that's really kind of, you know, otherwise your fees go down. You want your fees to go up.
So that's kind of the nature of the beast that you're in. You know?
That's the way it works. Yeah. You know, for business speakers in particular, you know, so.
Well, let me dig a little deeper into what you do, then we'll talk about the book. I know that you are a speaker, but you also do a lot with the events and exhibition industry. So tell me a little bit about what you do there.
Well, I'm not nearly as involved as I used to be back in the days when you and I first met. And, you know, back then I was pretty much immersed in the industry and worked with a lot of exhibitors, a lot of exhibiting companies on how to get the most out of trade shows, and of course, you know, as you know, my first book, which, gosh, came out back in 1990, was titled How to Get the Most Out of Trade Shows. Yeah, I know. We're both.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, boy. So, fortunately for me, that book, you know, ended up being the top-selling book in the industry, and it still is. But I do want to say, I do want to give a caveat here about that book, because as much as I would love to tell, you know, your followers, your viewers, to run out and get the book, How to Get the Most Out of Trade Shows, for the most part, the information in there is evergreen.
Yeah.
So McGraw-Hill, who published the book, has we did. I don't know how many printings. It's in like its 9th or 10th printing or something like that. But we've done 3 different editions, and the last edition was probably 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
And they've shown no interest in updating the book, and quite frankly, it's kind of not something that I'm that crazy about doing right now. So when people get the book now, they read it and they go, "Wow, this is really dated." You know, well, yeah, because the examples and stuff are from, back 15, 20 years ago. So, you know, if you get the book, just just keep that in mind when you get it. The how to do the trade show stuff is very evergreen, so it's still very strong, and that kind of kickstarted the whole thing. And so I was very strong working with both exhibitors and associations, show management companies for many years. I always I always was part of my business was always also working just on strategic marketing in general with corporations, and so it's gravitated in that direction as I've tried to steer it a little bit. And so I still do work in the event industry, but basically my primary work now is working with the events themselves on how to position themselves strategically, how to create value for both the exhibitor and the attendee, and in many cases, how to resurrect shows that are dying and bring them back from the dead. So I don't do a lot of exhibitor stuff anymore, but it's mostly strategic stuff now.
Yeah. And so when you're doing the strategic stuff, you're doing some consulting as well as speaking.
Yes.
So what does that look like as far as from how often you do that? And
I'm probably half my business is consulting.
Okay.
And so I work with like Consumer Electronics Show. Oh, sorry, not supposed to say that.
CES.
Yeah, I'll be there next week, and
oh my God,
and a shout out to anybody who's going to CES, because they are featuring my book as one of their top picks of the year, and they have a book club called Gary's Book Club. Guess who's that named? Guess who that's named after? But they have 11 authors that they feature there. And they picked me and some unknown guy named John Grisham. Not sure who he is.
I've heard the guy. He writes about the law or something like that. Yeah.
So I work with them. I work with the International Manufacturing Technology Show. I've worked with the confectioners industry. The candy events. Worked with broadcasters. I work and work with the RV. I've been doing a lot of work with the RV industry and the graphic arts industry and stuff like that. So, I'm helping their events to just get bigger and bigger and better. That's the main thing. Bigger and better and
shows are. I mean, the trade show industry is doing pretty well. There were certainly during the shakeout 8 or 10 years ago, there were a few that just went away. But in general, people love to see each other face to face, and it's a great marketing opportunity. And it's expensive, but for the amount of people you meet, it's on a per person basis. It's pretty good investment.
Well, it's a great tool. I mean, if you're an exhibitor, it's a fantastic tool as long as you know that your market is going to be there. And I refer to them as moose. And what I mean is like I'll use IMTS, the Manufacturing Technology Show, as the examples that they'll have 125,000 people. Walk in the front door of McCormick Place in Chicago, and I tell the exhibitors, it's like you're in the IMTS forest, okay, and in through the front door come all the animals,
right,
in the forest, and but it's all the animals in the forest that are coming in, and that from an exhibitor perspective, from a corporation who's there to find new business, you have to ask yourself, which animal am I looking for? So I call it hunting moose. And I say, for example, if moose is your target, then you have to ask yourself, how many moose are coming in, in through that front door? Not just how many animals are coming in,
but just how many specific for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And as long as you can identify that a large number of those, of those animals, of the moose, are going to be coming in through a front door of anywhere, whatever event you're going to, then you should be there, because there isn't, like you say, this face-to-face thing, of course, is the most important part of any type of sales and marketing. It's the most trusted tool for anybody, attendees and exhibitors alike, that want to talk to each other, and attendees want to touch things, they want to pick up stuff, they want to see things work. And they want to talk to you, face to face, and it's always better that way. So, and I have very little, what's the word I'm looking for? Sympathy for exhibitors who complain about measuring ROI. because they, the big complaint, of course, is, well, we're not making any sales. We're not writing any orders.
Right.
Well, okay, time to join the 21st century, which started 18 years ago, gang.
Right.
There is no such thing as a selling show or a marketing show or anything like that. A show, an event is an event. And, at every single trade show out there, somebody is writing orders. Somebody is. Fewer and fewer today. It's more of a marketing tool than ever before. And if you cannot figure out, if you don't know how to connect the dots between marketing and ROI, well, then you need to go back to school.
Yeah.
Because people who complain to me that they can't measure ROI are they just don't know.
Because this is a big boys game, and you got a lot of people out there that are competing against you that know exactly what they're doing. So
yeah.
So let's talk about your book, Uncopyable. I noticed that at the outset you talk about the three traps we all get into, which is the commoditization and the competitive strategy and the price pressure, and so we're all facing that.
Right.
I run a small business. And I work with strategic partners to do all the work, designers, fabricators, that sort of thing. And so there's other people doing the same thing, and there's other people that have way more than me. And I somehow managed to get my fair share of business, but I always wonder how. Mm-hmm. But the book is interesting, and it's a quick read, a fun read. You have a lot of great creative ideas in there. So
thank you. Well, it's the fact is that. Over the years, working with corporations, I've watched. I've heard the complaints over and over again. People will say, "Oh, gee, I developed a new idea for a product, or I developed a new product, and doggone it, somebody copied it, within a few months."
Yeah.
And that's not fair. Okay, it's welcome to the world, right? This is the way it is now. Is that technology is essentially commoditizing everything, and technology is making it easier for more people to participate. So like for example, in the old days, when I say old days, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, before computers, before the internet were ubiquitous, a company could a company could design a product that was unique, and that they get a patent for it. They bring it out to the industry, and they would have an advantage, a time advantage, for a while, because it would often take competitors, many months, if not a year or two, to finally catch up with what was being made. So you had that head start. That doesn't exist anymore. And it's just too easy for people to copy something. And if it can be copied, it will be copied, and it will be copied quickly. So the idea that the product itself separates you from the competition, it basically that's gone. And it's true in almost every single industry, whether it's a product or a service. That it's really hard to separate your product from the competition. So then we get into those other two things. One is the service, right? And people will say, "Oh, well, we separate ourselves from the competition through our customer service." Customer service, that phrase means nothing.
Yeah,
it's just a vague generality, and because if you like for example, I happen to know the guy who owns the domain customerservice.com. And when he first got that, he thought, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be, and he got it way back in the 90s, when, it was, if you were smart enough to grab some domains back then, boy,
like Coca-Cola.com or something,
Yeah. Or just names that companies would want to have. And they would pay you handsomely for that name. And he thought he had a tiger by the tail. Nothing. There was nothing, because if you say to somebody customerservice.com, well, what do you expect to find there?
Yeah.
As compared to mortgage.com.
Right.
You know what you're going to find at mortgage.com, right?
Right.
You don't know what you're. So people will say customer service separates us from the competition, but the bottom line is everybody says that. If you go to everybody's website, every single company out there says we have the best products, and we have the best customer service in our industry. If you're all saying it, then so what? And then
Yeah.
it boils down to, so if your product isn't unique, if your service isn't unique, or you're not showing them how it's unique, then it boils down to price.
And you have a couple of great examples in the book about Southwest Airlines, which does a lot of interesting things, and the one where you end up giving a book away to a 12-year-old because someone, a friend you were with, said, "Hey, it's a world famous author on the flight," and
yes.
the flight attendant went with it. It was great.
Yeah, that was that story was real. We get on the flight, and a friend of mine was with me. He says, well. He says to the flight attendant, he says, he's a world famous author. And she's like, really? Book with you, right? And I said, well, yeah, so they announced to the passengers, we have this famous author on board, Steve Miller, and he has graciously agreed to give an autographed copy of one of his books to the winner of this contest. And what they did was they rolled it. They said, how many squares of toilet paper will go from row 1 to row 30? And then everybody's writing down what they're thinking. And at the end, they roll this roll of toilet paper. They roll it down the aisle, and they count the squares to the end. And before we landed, a 12-year-old kid got an autographed copy of How to Get the Most Out of Trade Shows. So that's
hilarious. So what you also talk about uncopyable strategies. What kind of things should people look at without giving away too much in the book?
No, you give away it all.
Give away it all. Yeah.
Well, the bottom line is, in the strategies, the number one strategy everybody should follow is look at what everybody else is doing and don't do it.
Yeah.
I often tell clients that, if I'm sitting down with a client, or I'll tell my audiences, I'll say, look, here's a great little exercise for you to go through. The old Benjamin Franklin method of you get a piece of paper, and you draw a line down the middle of the paper, and on one side you write your company's name, on the other side you write your competitor's name, right? And then under yours, and the thing to do is to go to your website, and this is how you do this best. You go to your website and you look at what are the reasons why you're telling people they should buy from you. Okay, why should they do business with you? And you write those all on your side of the paper, right? You list them all down on your side of the paper. Then you go pick out a competitor, and you could do this with multiple competitors. But you go pick out 2 or 3 competitors, and then on their side you write down what they're telling everybody why they should do business with them. Then you go back and you take a look. You look at the top line on their side, and you go, do I have that on my side? Yes. You cross it off on both sides. Okay. And then you look to see, you cross off all the ones that are the same on both sides. And in the end, you say, okay, what's left? And, do you have anything left on your side that they don't have? If you do, then that might be something that you can use to develop an uncopyable strategy with. If you don't, or if they do, then you've got an issue with them having an advantage. The problem that I run into, and I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times, is that both sides, everything's crossed off. Yeah. Because they're the same. We're all promising the same stuff. And that is a very sobering exercise to go through. So, because you have to realize that now it's not so much that you are better than the competition, because better is imminently copyable. If somebody does something better than you, you copy them and make yours a little bit better. Right. And they copy you and they make theirs a little bit better. And it's just this vicious circle going around and around. You have to be different than the competition. So you have to look for ways to separate yourself from the crowd in ways that are not typically used. And it might be something along the lines of, like for example, and I talk about in my book, what is the world's most ridden roller coaster? And when I ask people that question, they start giving me, it's Six Flags and so, or it's over in Japan or something like that. And I go, no, it's called Space Mountain. Oh, that's the world's most ridden roller coaster. But we don't look at it as a roller coaster. And in fact, a lot of those rides at Disney, they're just roller coasters. Yeah. They're not really even great roller coasters. They're good enough roller coasters, but they are wrapped in an experience that totally pluses plus is what the customer is going through, the experience the customer is going through, so that the customer doesn't even think that this is a roller coaster. They go, I want to ride Space Mountain again, So the idea is that regardless of what you are delivering to people, you have to find ways to plus that through whether it's an experience that you're delivering to them, a specific customer service. Why is Nordstrom known for their customer service? The reason why they're known for their customer service is because they spread the myth.
Yeah.
We've all heard the Nordstrom stories, of incredible customer service stories. Okay.
Yes.
That is not by accident. Okay. That is not by accident. I was part of the team, that helped to create the myth of Nordstrom. And, the most famous story of all, the guy who returns 4 tires, to a store in Anchorage, Alaska. You've heard that, right?
I have heard that, yes.
Yeah, everybody's heard that story, that supposedly some guy goes into the Anchorage store and says, I want to return these 4 tires. They don't sell tires. They've never sold tires, right? And the store manager, as the myth goes, they gave him his money back. Now, when I was consulting for Nordstrom, I was working directly with the president and the top guys. I asked him the question. I said, "Is that story true?" And he said, "I don't know. I wasn't there."
That's not a denial, is it?
It's not a denial,
or
right?
A confirmation. Yeah.
The myth survives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
but it's a great example of it saying this is world class. So you see, they're not just going on and saying, we provide the best customer service possible, because that's not even on their website. It's not anywhere.
Yeah.
But the stories have made that statement for them.
Yeah. And so one last thing I'm curious to just get a little more on before we wrap it up, and that is your stealing genius, which you've actually got this little TM there, trademark, because it's a neat little phrase.
Yeah.
But you're taking something from one industry, moving to another industry, and just changing things up. So let's talk about that. How do you teach that to as you're doing consulting?
Well, essentially what it's all about is that we tend to be very myopic. And industries tend to be very incestuous. In other words, we study our competition very, very carefully, and we watch the competition very, very carefully. And when they create, and when one of our competitors installs a curved shower rod in the bathroom and tells everybody, "Aren't we cool? Look at our curved shower rod." Everybody else says, "We better have a curved shower rod."
Right.
Right. So, now, it wasn't that long ago when that curved shower rod did not exist. And now we go into a bathroom at a hotel, and if they don't have a curved shower rod, we go, "What's wrong with this place?"
Yeah, really.
So, that's an example of how we copy each other. Well, so the idea is you don't want to copy from within your industry. You want to go study aliens. In other words, and what I mean by aliens is you're studying companies and people who are not in your industry. Great examples are, I've taken, I took Delphi Automotive to the American Girl store in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Delphi Automotive, tier 1 auto, aftermarket manufacturer. We go to the American Girl store, and they walked out of there so many notes they couldn't even it was just unbelievable how many notes they had, and we had to whittle it down until they finally came up with some new ideas for some marketing strategy for exhibiting at trade shows. They use that and other ideas from like the Apple store, things like that. And so what I tell clients is that a perfect example, Southwest Airlines again, was that Herb Kelleher figured out that when his planes were on the ground, they were not making any money. They only made, people only paid to be going somewhere, right? And so he figured that he has to get the airplanes off the ground, when they land, he has to get them back off the ground as quickly as possible. And the typical turnaround for flights is 45 minutes to an hour or something like that.
Right.
Well, he went out and studied NASCAR pit crews.
Great story, yeah.
To learn how to turn the planes around faster. And so now their average turnaround is about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But you see, he had to step outside his world in order to come up with that. And that's really what you have to do, is go outside and look for ideas that you can steal and bring back. And that's why I call it stealing genius.
That's a great concept, looking at what people do in industry that you're not familiar with, just to see what they do. So
right.
Very cool.
Exactly.
The book's called Uncopyable. I really enjoyed it. I've got like 20 pages left, and thank you very much for sending it over. And orange is your color.
It's my branding color. That's another thing I tell companies, especially small companies, is I say, like, own a color. Yeah. Because if you can own a color, then you get them to think of you every time they see that color.
They see that color. Yeah, yep. Very good. And is there a website for the book, or is it just on Amazon? What do you recommend?
Well, I would go, you get it on Amazon, and I also do have a website, uncopyable.thebook.com.
Right.
You can, get it there. And
I like that there's a couple. I was going to say, I like that there's a couple of, bonus content and workbook available. So you're actually steering people from the book to the website to grab a couple of downloads. So that's very cool.
You bet.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, go get free stuff.
My pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a great here on the Trade Show Guy Monday Morning Coffee.
Yep. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Steve. All right. Thanks again to Steve Miller for being part of this week's Trade Show Guy Monday Morning Coffee. I hope Steve's recovering from CES well. Trade Show Tip of the Week. Yes, pay attention to your timeline. Boy, dates in the calendar are usually closer than they appear. It always throws me when one year is ending. And I know I have a handful of clients that are making booth changes for a show, which happens to be in about the second week of March. So in December, you're thinking, well, that's next year. That's a long ways out. We got plenty of time. And then you start to do the math. Well, we got like 2 months before it ships, less than 2 months before it ships. So you stop counting in months, you're counting in weeks, and then you're counting in days. So no matter what you're doing, making modest graphic changes or doing, wholesale expansions to your exhibit, pay very close attention to your timeline. Be in communication with your exhibit house way ahead of time so that you know what the deadlines are. Be aware of what the time is needed to make all those changes, because the more time you have, the more time you can save up front, the better you'll be at the end when you really need the time. So I want to close with one good thing this week. I got to see about a week or two ago, Darkest Hour. Gary Oldman plays Winston Churchill during a critical time in England's history during World War II. Gary was great. The role was terrific. Great movie. Very well written and very well acted. Very moving. And of course, I think Gary will win the Oscar for Best Actor this year. You heard it here. Great movie, worth your time. So that's it. Have yourself a great week.